basically the major issues that you said since the savings and loan, some of the problems?
So, in the savings and loan crisis, worst scandal in U.S. history, but now seems quaint in comparison. The estimate in the United States is that we will lose, as a result of the Great Recession, $24 trillion in GDP and over 10 million American jobs. And as these crises get bigger and bigger, we're the only nation, the United States, that could even conceivably bail out at this level, whether or not we should do so. So other nations are now going to face an existential threat. Ireland and Iceland came very close to being eliminated as modern nations by their bank scandals and crises, again brought on by fraud epidemics.
And now, is there anybody in the system doing the right thing, either trying to address it, regulate it correctly, or are there even any bankers or financial institutions that are sort of going the right direction?
Yes, I mean, there certainly are some small, in the U.S. context, regional banks, credit unions are largely tending to do the right thing. There are some smaller banks in Europe, but Europe and the United States are increasingly dominated by the largest banks, and the largest banks are the problem. They're the ones that are recurrent leading of these frauds, and of course, they're so big that they're treated as too big to fail, and that completely distorts the economy.
And then finally, from the public side, what's needed from politicians or regulation industries to help address some of the corruption and the cronyism?
Right. So what we talk about in criminology and in regulation is criminogenic environments. That's an environment that is, the incentives are so perverse that it produces these kinds of epidemics of fraud. So right now we've got the financial incentives, completely perverse, and create these kinds of frauds. We've got the 3 Ds, in English at least: deregulation, desupervision, de facto decriminalization. That incentivizes creating fraud because there's no downside to committing the frauds. You can now do so with complete impunity. Ease of entry makes it much more possible to commit these frauds, and that varies from place to place. So, and then the private structures. We've gotten away from any true partnerships. They pretty much don't exist anywhere in the world in finance anymore. In the old days, the partners had joint and several liability, so they had incentive not to make people partner unless they were really sure about their integrity and competence. And of course, even then, if they made them partner, they monitored them closely because their money was on the line. Without those incentives, the combination means that we have made it a much bigger upside because of modern executive compensation from cheating, and a much lower downside because the chances of you being detected are smaller, and the chances of you being prosecuted are now close to non-existent.